And this is the Transportation Advisory Board meeting to the Met Council. It is January 21st, 2026, getting through the longest month of the year here. And it is 12:38 p.m. And just call your attention quickly to, as I call the meeting to order, the acknowledgement at the beginning of the agenda that we're going to take up, I think, in February for a little bit of discussion as to how we provide that acknowledgement in the future, continuing in a written form, occasional verbal recognition, how we want to do that. So we'll take that up in February. And then, so I'm going to now, as I call the meeting to order, ask for an approval of the agenda.
So moved, Anderson.
Second, Bailey.
All right, we've got Anderson and Bailey. Former mayor, calling the request to approve the agenda. Moving to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have a form of agenda to work from. Is there anyone in the public, in the audience, that wishes to address the tab on a matter of concern to them? Okay. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move into the reports section of the agenda. I'm going to handle the exec committee. We're going to handle that under the active part of the agenda where we have some work to do. But we've got, I think, that fully populated. And I understand, Commissioner, that where we need 2 county commissioners, we have 3 that are interested in serving, and you're thinking about withdrawing your name.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'd
All right,
like
we'll
to see
deal with
my
that.
colleagues have an opportunity.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, not good, but thank you.
I'll be at the meetings anyway. It's not like I'm going away.
And if we didn't know each other so well, you could take that good in a lot of different ways, couldn't you? Yeah.
Well, I know where you live, John.
So we had a really interesting policy group meeting here just before the regular meeting, and talking about the community criteria category as we kind of revamp this whole regional solicitation and move into this new era of scoring. This idea of how we're going to score things is interesting. We're going to take it up with you, and we really couldn't come to any more conclusive sort of decision than it took place at TAC or took place at funding and programming, kind of a split vote on what to do. So the tab's going to have a robust conversation, I think, around a couple of different options that we have there in terms of scoring on community considerations portion of the scoring portion of the regional solicitation. And then when we get to active transportation, a little bit of the same thing. And then also add in the component of match, no match, small match, big match, but that whole criteria that we're going to deal with here as we go through the due course of our meeting. So that's about it for me. I'm off to the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting next week. We got some transportation work to do there, and I'll report back on that when I get back from Washington. And we've got some new members. Tim Reno, oh, there he is. Yeah, welcome. Yeah, replacing Amity Foster. Tim Reno has been with us on several occasions in the past and always an active participant. We welcome your full participation now and pleased to have you here. Bittersweet not to have Amity here, but understand fully why she's decided not to continue on. So Tim, welcome. Now we've got some new alternates. I'll just name them. Anoka County alternate, John Heinrich, Scott County alternate, Jody Brennan, and the Citizen B alternate is Aaron Cameron, and then the non-motorized alternate is Jackson Hampton. And so we'll keep that in mind as we go forward with our work. And the Minneapolis representative and alternate are still in process of appointment, so we'll stay tuned on that one. I'm going to turn now to agency reports, and I joked with Sheila on the sidebar here that had I known that she was going to be here in Knott County, I wouldn't have put 2 minutes per report.
Minutes you got.
So, not necessary with Sheila. And I'll turn to Sheila now for an update from MnDOT. Sorry I cut into your time.
No worries. So, thank you. MnDOT, of course, Sheila Kelby. We are in pothole season, and snow season, and all of the above. So the roads, if you're driving a bicycle or driving in a car, definitely are seeing that on the state highway system. We're working with some of our asphalt peoples to be able to open up one of our plants early to be able to help facilitate some of the pothole repair. So again, we're getting out there as fast as we can, but this weird weather of hot, cold, freezing isn't helping. So I know Connie and I usually report on our safety numbers. Last year, we completed the year with 370 fatalities, which still seems like an awful lot. It is down from the year before, meaning we had 105, I think it's 104 people that would have made it home to their families more than they did the year before. So we're definitely seeing an increase in numbers. Pedestrian and bicycle fatalities was up incredibly last year. So again, as you're driving, make sure you're being aware. And again, one of the most important things that we can do on the highway is be aware and be safe. So again, we'll continue to report on the fatalities. We're having already the same number as of the 21st of January. We already have the same number of fatalities that we had on the system last year. So we're starting out the same again. So do what you can. And that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Any questions for Member Culpy? All right, let's move on to Amanda Jarrett-Smith, who's with us today from MPCA. Amanda, anything to report?
Sure, just a few reports from PCA. One is just a little awareness. We continue to interact with the federal level and some deregulatory efforts that they're going through, including related to transportation and impacts that impact emissions from transportation. So right now they're accepting comments on rolling back CAFE standards, which are the standards that regulate the vehicle efficiency. So we're working with MnDOT on some comments into that federal docket and would encourage others to take a look at that if you're interested. We have two somewhat relevant grant opportunities open right now. We have, out of our large federal grant, the Climate Smart Food Systems Grant, we have a $5 million grant opportunity for vehicle replacements for businesses as well as government entities. Those vehicles need to be somehow connected with the food system. And then we also have a significantly smaller grant, but an interesting opportunity for $135,000 in grants for electric bikes for commercial use. So those are my reports. Thank you.
So that electric bikes, metro use, is that, for just individuals to apply for that, or cities, or?
For commercial use. So for those are for small, businesses
okay.
in order to replace some.
Okay.
They might be using a vehicle of a different type. So.
Thanks for that. Any questions for Member Smith? All right, let's move on. And we still don't have a rep for the MAC, but we've got Bridget Reef with us today, and we'll have Bridget come up and give us an update from the Metropolitan Airports Commission.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Just a couple of things today. We do have a new chairperson appointed as of today is his first day. James Lawrence is our new chair. He's been a member of the commission for a few years now. He brings international business and board experience with him and has worked for companies like General Mills, Northwest Airlines, and Pepsi Company. And if you're ever interested in having a conversation with him about soda and cans versus bottles and all that kind of stuff, he's very interested in that from his days in Pepsi. It's kind of interesting. Starting February 1st, TSA is going to require real ID or passport. And if you don't have one, it's not only going to cost you time, it's going to cost you money. $45 every single time you show up without. We're going to be handing out information for folks on how to sign up. Our numbers tell us about 90+% of our passengers have some sort of a real ID, but that leaves a segment of the population yet that doesn't. So please get that done if you haven't already. Also, if you're a pre-check member, TSA is implementing touchless ID. You have to opt in for it, and for right now, it's only pre-check, but if you opt in, it's facial recognition only. Don't need a boarding pass or an ID to get through there. security checkpoints. So everything, all the technology is moving us to faster and faster processing, which is a really good thing.
You opt in.
Well, that's probably on the TSA website. It's under TIS, is the acronym for it. And I can get Elaine some information about how to
If you
do
get
that.
that to Elaine, that'd be
Absolutely.
good.
Okay. And then the last thing is, yesterday at our full commission meeting, Jude Bricker was there from Sun Country, CEO. He had a few remarks about the merger with Alliant. If you're interested, we do post videos from our live stream meetings. He didn't speak for very long, but he talked a little bit about some of the reasons why they were very interested in this particular merger. It relates to aircraft and aircraft availability. It relates to markets and the fact that Sun Country right now is really solely only in one market, and that could be detrimental in the future. And so they're looking at ways at establishing a little bit larger footprint, and merging with this airline is a way to do that, as well as the ongoing threat of competition in one market only. So he had a few interesting things to say. We'll have to see what it means ultimately long-term for MSP, but they, according to what they say, are intending to maintain a maintenance presence and certainly a hub presence at MSP, even though the headquarters will likely move to Nevada.
Okay. So back to the original point that you were making about on a date certain, you're going to have real ID or your passport with you, otherwise you're going to pay $45. So you can still fly, but you're going to pay $45 clear, is that it, or what? What did you mean by that?
So, Mr. Chair, from what I understand, the TSA is setting up a payment type of a system where you will have to pay on site, but the time that it's going to take will likely mean you'll miss your flight. There's time, because they have to do the research and they have to verify you are who you say if you don't have the appropriate identification. So not only will it cost you time, but it will likely cost you your flight as well.
Okay. Other questions for Bridget? Yes, go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've seen news reports that ICE is now stationed in the jetways at MSP. I'm seeing news reports out of Logan that people on a flight from Boston to Lisbon were in fact told they had to be face ID'd or they would be detained or they would not be allowed to board. Is that happening at MSP as well? And is it the fact that we have ICE agents now stationed on all of our jetways?
Mr. Chair and members, I am not the person to speak to the ICE issue. A month or so ago, we had a couple of comments from MAC about our position. The hardest thing for us as an airport right now is to be able to identify what's factual and what's not. And so I can't make any comments about those things. We did put out under our Airport Authority website, which is metroairports.org. We did create a page that is specific to this issue, and it has an FAQs page associated with it. That is going to that's going to contain the latest and greatest information that we know and that we have on the topic. And so I would encourage you to go to that location if you're looking for answers.
Thank
I
you.
apologize, member, that's the best I can do today.
Other questions for Ms. Reef? Okay. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming over. Metropolitan Council, Deb Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things today. So tonight, the Metropolitan Council will hear updates on two important topics. The first is arterial BRT. Metro Transit is completing its evaluation of candidate arterial BRT corridors and will recommend new lines. The West 7th Street corridor will be recommended for the Metro J line in combination with roadway improvements in the corridor. This corridor would receive a minimum of $30 million in the 2026 regional solicitation. The Nicollet Avenue corridor will be recommended for the Metro K line. And we will also advance the study of 3 additional lines that will inform a future recommendation for the Metro L line, which are Randolph Avenue, Franklin Grand, Johnson, and Lyndale. Additionally, 2 study corridors may be evaluated as potential extensions of the operating Metro C line. Metro Transit staff will seek to bring a presentation to TAB at its February meeting with all of that information provided. We're also having a review today of fare policy. Metro Transit is implementing a regional fare system upgrade and considering fare policy changes. This continues the process to simplify the region's regular route structure and to modernize payment methods used across services. The policy will also set fare for the council's Metro Transit microservice. Other providers may set their own fares on Metro Transit. Of particular note, tap-based payment with phones or credit cards is a major new feature of this upgrade. These changes are oriented towards making the system easy to understand and use and would be released for public comment prior to implementation. Another thing we wanted to talk about is a new transit service pilot is launching in February, bringing app-based on-demand transit link service to parts of Forest Lake, Stillwater, Oak Park Heights, and Hastings. These communities are served by Transit Link, which is the transit service for communities where regular route service is infrequent or unavailable. Transit Link covers the entire 7-county region and is primarily a reservation-based style-of-ride service. Working with our local government partners, one of the unmet needs is for in-town, on-demand travel in these freestanding town centers. To meet this, we're dedicating Transit Link buses and leveraging our Metro Micro app to offer this on-demand service in these cities. On-demand rides will be available for these areas 4 hours per day, from 10 a.m. to 2 days a week, depending on the different zones. Rides will follow standard Transit Link pricing, which is $3.50 each way, paid with a go-to card or cash. Service begins in Hastings on Monday, February 2nd, with service launching in Forest Lake and Stillwater on February 3rd. And we'll track the results of this pilot and see if there's opportunities to implement service like this in other of our smaller freestanding cities.
Good, thanks for that report. Questions for Member Barber? All right, yes, Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Member Barber, just a clarifying question in regards to the fare policy. Is that fare policy something that would just affect Transit Link or Metro Transit, or is that something that the suburban transit providers will have to adhere to?
Mr. Chair, there will be, for some of the commuter timeframes, there could be some impacts to the suburban transit providers because that falls under regional fare policy. I think by and large, there used to be all sorts of different tiers of times of day, and we're simplifying things quite a bit. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can get them to you. The Metro Micro is the one I think that's really applicable for your area, for Southwest Transit. Right now, the providers can set their own fares for that type of service.
Sure, okay.
So, but we wanted to standardize our Metro Micro one.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So you said that the ABRT line that is going to get the $30 million from the 2026 solicitation, what line was that and when is that going to get started?
I don't know the year. We don't know yet. So we're not that far as to when it will happen or be built, but it's the first one, the one that's being pushed or moved forward for the recommendation is West 7th Street corridor. So it kind of replicates, if you've heard in the past, people talk about the Riverview line. It's along that corridor, so downtown St. Paul down to the airport. And this option that they've looked at will also allow for a fair bit of reconstruction of West 7th. So it's going to be a significantly important project for the region.
If I could, yeah, I'm not discounting the significance of the project at all. I do have some concerns with the unknown date of the project.
I just don't have it here.
Oh, okay. Is it within the next 5 years, 10 years?
What's that? I'm phoning a friend.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, it'd be within the program years that TAB is considering for the upcoming solicitation. So I think in the 2030 timeframe is
2030.
what's
Okay.
expected.
Thank you.
Member Marino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member Barber, what is the length of time that pilot for Forest Lake, Hastings, and those other cities is going to be going for? Is there an end date for it, or is it more just indefinite, some review at a certain time?
At this point, we don't have an end date, so we're just excited to try this. We have a number of rural centers or smaller freestanding cities that are looking for some service that haven't been connected, that are within the transit taxing district. So this is a good opportunity for us to try something new, and hopefully it's helpful, so.
Yeah.
Other questions for Member Barber? Okay. We don't have Gary Hansen with us today to report out for suburban transit operations, but Elaine has his report that he had sent in, and she's going to read that.
Thank you, Chair. Maple Grove Transit ridership in 2025 increased 10% over 2024. Express ridership increased 9%, and My Ride on-demand ridership was up 12%. Southwest Transit reported a 24% overall increase in bus ridership in 2025. Autonomous vehicle ridership within the transit station zone increased 144%. Based on the success of Prime on-demand ridership serving more compact zones, Southwest will consider modeling regular bus service in smaller zones to improve efficiency. Minnesota Valley Transit Authority overall ridership was up 8% over 2024. Express ridership increased 12% to Minneapolis and 16% to St. Paul. Connect Microtransit ridership was up 34%, while local ridership was stable. In 2025, eJust microbuses saved MBTA more than $24,000 in fuel cost and reduced CO emissions by 97 tons. MBTA's South Metro Transit Coalition effort is making progress as 21 business members have accepted. The coalition will have its first meeting in February to hear an overview of membership benefits and assistance that MBTA will provide with commute information for current and prospective employees.
Thanks, Elaine, for that report. Chair McPherson, you want to come up and is there anything you want to report out on from a tax standpoint?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Nothing to report as far as TAC. We got a lot of items ahead of us.
All right, if you want to just stay right there, we're going to get to the minutes here. If everybody has had a chance to read the minutes, we'll take a motion to approve.
Second, Gotel.
Got a motion by Member Anderson, second by Commissioner Gotel to approve the minutes of December 17, 2025 as published. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of those minutes of December 17, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Those minutes are approved. And now we'll move on to those consent items that we want to address, and then we'll have you go into the non-consent issues as well. Chair McPherson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members. So the first one here is consent item 2026-12, which is a streamlined TIP amendment for 3 project adjustments. The 3 projects are MnDOT 77. There's a reduction in cost and then some changes to some of the elements of the project, some of the scoping and some of the line items on that. I-94, there's also a reduction. That project, the specific reduction is in relation to the proposed landscape improvements along the corridor there. Originally, it was described as the whole length. It was actually just a portion of the length in the job. So that was a description revision there. And then the third one relates to a scope adjustment where MnDOT and Little Canada are working on a joint effort project, and they're going to include the scope of that project within their I-35 signal improvement project related to some ramps. So that one's just kind of combining the project for some simplification there and efficiency. So pretty standard
Anybody have
items.
any questions on 2026-29 or, excuse me, on 2026-12? All right, go ahead and handle 13 and we'll handle them both on a single motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So number 13 here relates to City of Minneapolis was fortunate to receive a Safe Streets and Roads for All federal competitive grant to do some implementation of different safety measures on their high injury network. So with that, that's just including some of these implementation measures into the TIP.
All right, very good. Questions on either of those items? All right, is there a motion to approve both of those items, 12 and 13, on a single motion basis?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second?
Second.
Second, Bradley? All right, we got a motion and second to approve the 2026-12 and 2026-13 in a single motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of those 2 items on a consent basis, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Those items are approved and adopted. Now we're under the non-consent portion of the agenda. The first thing there is, I've got that action item. Every year we have to set up the new Transportation Advisory Board Executive Committee, and it's got a statutory element to it, and so we can have 2 county board members. As you heard Commissioner Gattell say, she's going to withdraw her name. She's had a period of service, excellent service to the TAB and the Exec Committee, but wants to give others an opportunity to serve. And so the county board members would be Julie Jepson for Anoka County and from Anoka County, and Mai Zhang Zhang Chong Zhang from Ramsey County, and then the board members from the cities of the first class, Sarah Jost, Molly Coleman will be serving as the alternate, and then for St. Paul, and then the remaining board members from the remaining cities would be Mayor Hubbard from Chaska, thanks for stepping up, and Victor Lake from Prior Lake, thank you, Victor. And then the citizen board member is going to be Peter Dugan, who earlier today called us and said he was sick, but he was on the way. So we sent him a note saying, don't come. So he went to the doctor instead. So that was a far better place for him to go than to visit with all of us. Member representing the modal and remaining agency board members is Brian Martinson, who's done just a terrific job on the tab. He's technically the non-motorized rep. So those are that's the slate of people scheduled to serve on the TAB Exec Committee for 2026. And I need a motion from the TAB and an approval by the TAB to authorize the membership appointments to the TAB Exec Committee for 2026.
I'll move this slate, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Commissioner, is there a second?
I'll second Bailey.
All right, thank you, Mayor. We got a motion and a second to approve the Exec Committee slate for 2026 as named. Any further discussion? Yes, Member Martinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a sort of a procedural question and then a request of the TAB. So I see that with respect to the City of St. Paul, we have both Sora Jost and Molly Coleman listed. So I'm assuming that if one of them is not available for the TAB exec meeting, that the alternate is able to serve in their stead, yes?
Correct.
None of the other positions have that noted, but I believe that most of the other positions also have alternates. Are we going to be able to, for instance, if the non-motorized alternate is available and I am not for that meeting, can the non-motorized alternate sit at exec for me?
Yeah, that's a good question, and Elaine, we've had this
Yes, we've
conversation.
had in the past, if our tab member on the exec board wasn't present, their alternate did sit in. And we did put in both Sarah Jost and Molly Coleman, because Molly was the one that emailed me, and I didn't hear from Sarah, so I figure she's probably going to be the one that will be attending, most likely, on a regular basis. That was the only reason.
So procedurally, that can be done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification then. The request that I have of TAB, and I don't know that we need to deal with it today because we've got a busy schedule, but it's always chafed on me that this position the seat that I hold is called the non-motorized representative because it's defined in the negative of what it's not. And so the legislative language that establishes the board does in fact say one representative to speak for non-motorized transportation. However, I believe that we can informally, vernacularly refer to the position, and I would prefer that the seat be called the representative for bike, walk, and roll. The bike, walk, and roll representative is a more accurate representation of what the seat is here to represent and the constituency that I am supposed to be representing in that role. So I just make that request, and I don't know how we handle it procedurally. I don't think we need to put it to a vote today, but for future discussion, if possible. Thank you.
All right, thanks. We'll, even though there's a statutory designation as to the name, I think we could give it our own moniker.
Thank you.
Internally, so.
Appreciate that.
We can make that change. All right, any further discussion on that? All those in favor of adoption of the slate of recommended appointments for the TAB Exec Committee for 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Those people are appointed. Thanks for agreeing to serve. And thanks for those clarifications and questions, Member Martinson. All right, we're on now to the next matter here that we're going back to Chair McPherson, which is 2026-02.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a number of items here that related to the regional solicitation update. And so like we did in the TAC meeting, Steve Peterson and the project team that helped us walk through this process, they're here today, and I'm going to have Steve Peterson come up here and walk through each item. He's got a nice presentation and a summary here to kind of share with the entire TAB here, a little bit of the history and talk about each item, and then I'll just fill in the gaps from the technical committee perspectives. So I'll turn it over to Steve.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can I make
Commissioner, go ahead.
question? So there's a number of action items here in front of us. Some of them are more controversial than others. Those that are kind of settled, you want us to make motions as we go along and get those set aside?
Be a shorter meeting.
Expedite things.
Yeah, we could do that as we go along. Yeah, I think it's a good way to handle it. That's the way I intended to handle it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. So we have 10 items, and most of those are going to be fairly quick. We did split out the funding sources, so we have separate ones for the federal funds, regional solicitation, and then separate active transportation. And then we do have one at the end for the Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP. And again, what we're asking of you is the application ready to be released for public comment? So we'll send this out for public comment by the end of this week with what you approved today. And then we'll come back at the March meeting. And then given the public comments, it'll go to the funding programming, TAC, and then to TAB on March 18th for final approval and release. And then the item does go to Met Council's Transportation Committee, and then the full council is the final approval for the application to release it. So hopefully a release of the spring, and then project selection by the end of the calendar year before some of these seats turn over. So the first one, the first two relate to the qualifying requirements. So these are the check boxes that applicants need to fill out. The first one is for the federal funds, 2026-02 with qualifying requirements. And the motion is to recommend approval of the qualifying requirements that are for the purpose of releases for the public comment as shown in attachment 1.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
I think these were without controversy, pretty standard stuff in the application process. I'm conferring with my, the yin to my yang generally on policy, and figure if we're both in alignment, maybe the board will be as well. So I'd like to move that.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second to approve 2026-02, which is the setting forth of the regional solicitation qualifying requirements for 2026. Any further discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor of adoption of 2020?
Mr. Chair?
Oh, yeah. Somebody has their hand up, yeah.
One
Member Marino, go ahead.
You mentioned that the project selection would be at the end of the year. When is the applications going to be, or targeting to open the applications for people to apply for regional solicitation funding? Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. So we're hoping that the April, May, and June timeframe would be when the call for projects would be. Okay, thank you.
All right, good. Other questions? Okay. All those in favor of adoption of Action Transmittal 2026-02 in its recommended form, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 2026-02 is adopted. Those qualifying criteria set forth in attachment 1 are adopted. All right.
Okay.
Move on to 03.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So 03 is the same qualifying requirements, but this is specific to active transportation. So again, I don't know, Chair McPherson, anything you want to add on this particular one?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Mr. Chair, members. So on this one, just for the edification here of the members, during the discussion of this item, the one item I want to call attention to is the year-round maintenance of the facility. So I know that the Active Transportation Working Group that has met over the course of the last year and a half, they've done in-depth dive, a lot of discussion around that topic. And so ultimately, there was approval on this. Just wanted to make a note from the technical perspective and just some of the feedback from the members on both the TAC and funding and programming. Having a year-round requirement for maintenance on some of this, for smaller communities that we're really targeting to go after these funds, we may see some of these communities not apply for that. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. No anecdotal evidence of that right now. We'll wait and see what happens with the application, but just so you're aware that there are some smaller communities that don't have a lot of wherewithal for year-round maintenance. So.
Yeah, Commissioner, go ahead.
You know, when we said there would be no match for active transportation, I was pleased that we were going to have that they had to maintain it, that was sort of the skin in the game. So there was no skin in the game because we said no match. Maintaining it is the skin, and I think that's a good thing.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes,
And
Commissioner.
also, this is just putting this out for public comment, so we can see what we hear from those smaller entities, and if we may need to make modifications before final adoption, we'll have that opportunity, but this is to get it. I mean, the goal today is get this thing to the point where we can get it out for public comment so we can stay on track. So with that, I'd move the TAC recommendation on 2026-03.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second, Commissioner Jepson. We got a motion and second with respect to 2026-03 and the active transportation solicitation qualifying requirements for release to the public for public comment. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of action item 2026-03 and it's recommended, oh, sorry, Commissioner, go ahead. Sorry, I missed you.
Member Holberg, so I'm gonna just mention one thing because I want our membership to be thinking about it, to reinforce the TAC recommendation. I know for Washington County, and I served on this active transportation committee, but I disagree with one aspect of it, is the snow removal. We were trying to achieve smaller entities, smaller communities to get money to do trails. And I just want to stress that they don't have the mechanisms to clear their trails. And in combination with that, when you really think about the trails, a lot of times they're very rural and most of their uses, the 8 to 9 months of really active use is in those spring to fall. So they really align good with maybe not needing to be snow removed, and just want our members to think about that prior to, after we come back up.
All right, as Commissioner Holberg said, this is to get the matter released for public comment, and make sure that you put your comments in from your county if you think that's a fair consideration. So any other comments? All right, all those in favor of adoption of 2026-03 in its recommended form, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 2026-03 is adopted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Next, 2026-04. This is specific to the active transportation regional sales tax funds. And again, the 2023 state statute does not indicate that a local match is required. They're silent on whether a match is required. For the federal funds, for instance, there is a minimum required non-federal match of 20%, but it is silent for this. So we had long discussions, I think, on this particular topic. The active transportation work group wanted to get some additional feedback. So we brought two options to the TAC Funding and Programming Committee shown on the bottom of the slide. Again, there's three categories for active transportation. It's local bike, local pedestrian, and then the active transportation planning. So the two options we brought to funding and programming were no match for active transportation categories, all of them, or number two, a small nominal match of 5%. But that would just be for the local bike and the local pedestrian categories. No match for the active transportation planning. So we brought that to TAC Funding and Programming, and they recommended option number two, so a 5% match. And then the same thing for the TAC committee. They did recommend that 5% match. I don't know, Chair McPherson, anything you want to add? Kind of maybe some of the rationale that coming from our TAC?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so Mr. Chair, members, on that, just to add a little bit more to that. So during the discussion at TAC and even funding and programming, what the members shared with the TAC was some of the reasoning for that was having a little skin in the game, which we've heard other members say as well. And then it just adds, valuable agency buy-in to have a little bit of skin in the game. But there was conversation both ways about the benefit of not having a match to try and target our smaller communities. So to that point, it was a pretty unanimous vote. I believe it was 100% supporting the 5% match, but there was discussion both ways on that. Ultimately, that was the motion that carried through TAC, was moving forward with a 5% match on the two infrastructure-related categories, and then the planning would be 0. So.
Okay, we have our active transportation working group chair and vice chair here, and I would, do you want to state the position of the working group that you led?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We had robust discussion about this one too. This was one of the areas we did not have consensus on. I think we had some members who were very passionate about 0%. I think echoing TAC, there was also the skin in the game argument for 5%. I think the main thing, though, is just from perspective of sort of as the chair, is that one of the earlier comments we had about this group was we wanted to lower barriers to applicants so that we do get smaller cities and agencies that would apply. Again, we just talked about this for winter maintenance, that is a barrier potentially for some small groups. And if we add another barrier with 5%, now we're adding 2 barriers. So I think that's also something to consider. And then maybe also to echo Member Ulrich, we also had the discussion about some of the local match could also be just you are saying that you're obligated to do winter maintenance. So I think those are very connected to our prior item as well. And I think the other part would be we probably do need public comments on this as well. Thinking about, I think I talked to TAC Chair McPherson about this before. We've only heard from one small municipality ever in this process about what they want or need directly. So I think we should probably solicit their comments directly as much as possible too in this process.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just add to that briefly. So the slide, we have slides down below that actually clarify what the real requirements are of municipalities or counties to maintain in usable shape. And it's not that the entities that are applying necessarily are going to have to be doing that themselves. They have to have policies in place for how that is going to be accomplished. For instance, well, we'll get to it when we get to it, but I believe that the slides as they've been presented to us now make it much more clear, and they are reasonable expectations. These are expectations that should not be onerous for any entity, literally. The other thing I'd note is this is a policy decision that we're discussing. It's not a technical issue. This is a policy decision. It's a policy recommendation that's coming out of the technical working group, or the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee. But it's not a technical recommendation. Just want to keep that distinction clear in people's minds because it's easily blurred. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, Chair McPherson, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to make one more item here, bring one more item to your attention, and that is during the discussion with TAC, one thing that came up was a discussion of what exactly would be considered the eligible costs. When you talk about a 5% match on these categories, what is the 5% match to? And so since the doors are kind of open on this, which is good for local agencies to get in here, you can include some of that engineering costs and potential some of that right-of-way acquisition costs, the eligible portions. We wanted to ensure that it's 5% of all eligible costs that were submitted. So if an agency just submits an application for, let's say, $500,000 for building the sidewalk, but there's no engineering, it would just be 5% on that. Whereas if they put in, $75,000 for a consultant to come in and design that sidewalk and the construction, then it'd be 5% of all those costs. So that was just something to make sure there was some clarification on that.
Commissioner Holberg?
Yes, and I support the 5% match, but was wholly outnumbered in both the active transportation working group and the policy group as well. But I would put a point forward that if it is the intent of the group to move with no match, I think you really have to look at a limited number of applications, because you could have a large city put in dozens and dozens of intersections. I mean, if there's no match, and then our poor scoring team would be inundated, the opportunity or likelihood of them being inundated with, a whole slew of applications with no match, that we should think about that a little bit before we do it.
Yeah, as Commissioner indicated in our policymaker working group, we did just a quick straw poll, and I think most of the group, predominant majority favored no match, but good points were raised on both sides. So, but it was done very quickly to be able to get into this meeting. So, I'm interested in the viewpoint of the rest of our TAB members here as we try to figure out which direction to go. Which one of these alternatives do we want to think about? So, Member Anderson.
Hearing all this, I was going in thinking the 5% match. I've always appreciated everyone having skin in the game, but I think you get a better feedback loop, so to speak, if you do have the 5% in there. You're going to see if you get pushback on that, and I think the discussion has been open as to whether some of those soft costs are included in that match or not. So I think that's the way to present this to the public, and then just see what the feedback is when we get it back.
Others? Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I am in full support of a no match. I think this will open up many opportunities for smaller cities in our communities to be able to even consider this as an option, whether they will or won't, at least they'll consider it. I think 5%, I've been hearing skin in the game a lot lately. And for municipalities and counties, a match means potentially property taxes. And right now, we are dealing with skyrocketing property taxes, and if we can prevent just a small amount or even a big amount for a smaller city or a decent-sized city who wouldn't have this opportunity otherwise, I think that was the intention of the legislation. This is amazing money, this amazing opportunity, so why are we debating about 0 to 5%? When cities and counties already have significant skin in the game? What's another 5% gonna, benefit us from giving that money away or showing that they're even that much more committed to a project in their city or county? So I would, if I may, Mr. Chair, I would make the motion for no match for active transportation solicitation categories.
All right, relative to 2026-04, Commissioner Jepson moves that we have no match for all the active transportation solicitation categories. Is there a second on that motion? Is it a second? Member Martinson? Discussion. Commissioner Ulrich, would you restate your thoughts on this?
Well, just that if you have no match, then we ought to insist on they gotta maintain it, and I would feel just, maybe I'd be flexible, feel flexibility if there was a match, then maybe we could back away on the maintenance. But I like the maintaining it, but so.
All right.
As part of the, paired with the no match.
Others?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner, or Member Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do support this. As a rule of just as a council member, I represent a number of small cities that I think that if we put a barrier to them applying, they're not used to, some of them aren't used to doing this. And so I think it's a good opportunity for some of these smaller cities to have projects that can be very impactfully locally, and still be able to manage within their budgets. So I do support the no match for this.
Good, thanks for that. Commissioner Zhang?
I just have a question. Isn't the maintenance and upkeep of the project a part of this too, for ongoing maintenance, right? That any city or local government would have to consider?
Not yet. I mean, what we've done in the other action was to make that an element of it, and then we're waiting for public feedback, and then we'll make that decision as to whether or not maintenance, year-round maintenance ought to be required when we approve the regional solicitation. I think the timing was March, Steve?
Yeah, Mr.
At least
Chair.
that's the way I was understanding.
Yeah, maybe to clarify, it's not a requirement right now, but the last approval about the qualifying requirements, that was embedded within that approval, that both you'll maintain the trail or sidewalk for its useful life and year-round maintenance. Those two items were kind of combined. So that was part of the last approval. Then I think, Mr. Chair, maybe what you're saying is at the end here, we're gonna the final approval is still forthcoming, but it was embedded within the qualifying requirements that we just did.
Commissioner Karwoski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to support the 0%. We have many small communities in Washington County that I think it'll detract from them applying. And as mentioned, they have right-of-way costs, possibly. They certainly have engineering costs. But I think more importantly, this is state money, and the legislature didn't tell us to add a lot of hurdles. So why should we hurt, I'm for the state did not maintain it, let's keep it as simple as possible. So.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anyone else? All right, we got a motion and a second. Discussion has been concluded. The motion is that we recommend no match for all the active transportation solicitation categories. And that is the embodiment of 2026-04. All those in favor of passage of the recommended motion in its stated form, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, very good. Thank you, everybody, for that. And then we're moving on here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. 2026-05 is the regional solicitation criteria, measures, and scoring guidance. So this is how we're going to score and rank projects. It does not include the score weighting, that, safety versus freight versus that. That's still forthcoming. But this is just the how we're going to score and measure projects. And we've had 3 rounds of technical review from our technical partners on this. But this is kind of a lot of material to get through if you're looking through the action item, but it has gone through pretty extensive review at the same point. So, anything to add?
All right.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members, nothing to add. Steve's correct. I think the project team that was involved in this and all the partners that were reviewing the data as it came out over the last 3 to 4 months, I think everyone's had an active role, and a lot of the comments and feedback that they received have been incorporated into this final document that you see before you. So there was very minimal conversation on this item and the following one for the same reason.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, tab members, request for release for public comment of these criteria. And I'm going to turn now to Commissioner Holbert.
Well, Mr. Chair, if there's no questions, I'll just move approval. I think we're going to have a lot of discussion around the weighting issue, and that, again, this is the more technical end of the process, and to get it out for comment. If there's need for minor changes, we'll be able to do it at the end.
All right. Martin, seconds?
I've actually got some discussion, so
Yeah.
I'll try to be quick.
Well, yeah, then we'll go there. But are you seconding it?
I'm not seconding it.
I'm seconding it.
All right, Commissioner
Gattel
Gattel
has.
is seconding it, and Member Martinson wants to get the discussion, and here we are.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get into the weeds with this because, so on one of the criteria for the active transportation in particular, and I gave this written feedback, but I didn't get any response to it, so I don't know what happened to it. So for pedestrian, so one of the criteria for pedestrian projects is key destinations, right? Key destinations within a half mile of the project that's being done. That's fine for PEDs. What I had suggested is that key destinations for bike projects should have a much larger radius, because how far you can walk, you can walk a half mile in, let's say, 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, I can bike almost all the way from my house here. So I think it's a much more reasonable diameter to say something like 3 or 4 miles and count all of the key destinations within that radius for a bike project. But they currently are both set at a half mile. I just don't think it's good policy that you would set it that tight for bike.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, maybe to quickly respond, I agree with what you're saying. I think the reason we set a half mile is because that's the methodology we're using to get greenhouse gas reduction out of projects. So the destinations within 1/2 mile of all the bike ped projects is the methodology that Tony Fisher from our staff is using to garner greenhouse gas reduction.
That also seems like maybe not exactly appropriate.
Yeah, you're saying maybe it's not, maybe because bikes are different.
Both of them should be expanded then. I mean, think about it. Just think about it rationally, right? You can travel between 12, the average person bikes about 12 miles an hour. So how far do you get in 15 minutes? 4 miles typically. So I don't know. I mean, we can certainly, so at minimum, I would like to have that flagged for public input specifically.
I suppose I'd just say one thing on the a 3-mile radius for a project would be a lot of destinations potentially. I think the problem could be potentially, you've got a list of hundreds of locations. I don't know. That's just one consideration to think about as well.
I mean, I think that's a good problem to have, honestly. It shows how much is possible by bike that you don't have to drive to, and so many of the trips that people make are shorter than 5 miles that they do in their cars that could be done by bike, and especially now with cargo bikes that are electrified, people are replacing a lot of car trips that are sort of those distances. So you're going to be missing things if you only look at a half-mile radius. Again, I would be satisfied as a response to this if you just make this a specific call out for public input on it, and we get other people's perspectives on it, not just mine. Thanks.
I think we've got you've got that capability, I'm sure, making a margin note for people that they can opine on that particular issue.
Yes, we can. I've got a list of
That's a good
3 or
way
4
to
things
handle it,
here.
is to call it out that way. Yeah. Okay. Other comments or concerns relative to 2026-05? All right. We got a motion and a second to adopt 2026-05. No further discussion. All those in favor of adopting 2026-05 in its recommended form, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have that passage on 2026-05. On to 2026-06.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. 2026-06 is the same approval for the active transportation, the 3 application categories. One thing to note here that they are directly tied back. There were 7 requirements in the state legislation. And so between the qualifying requirements and the scoring measures, you can make a direct connection back to that legislation. I think that's one thing we had wanted to do as a group, as part of Glenn and Brian's group, that people could clearly see we're following the state legislation, and there's a direct tie between the measures and how we're scoring projects and what was asked of us. Anything to add, Mr.?
Yeah.
Commissioner Gottel moves 2026-06. Is there a second?
Second, Johnson.
All right, second, Johnson. Discussion. Member Martinson.
Thank you. Same request for this.
All right. Any other, Chair, any other comments or questions that you want to?
No, Steve
Issues that you
answered
want to
the
call
one
on?
about these are tied to the legislative directives, and that was one of the main components. And if you are reviewing that document, I think they're listed as an asterisk as you look through them.
Okay. All right, we're working our way towards the heart of the issues here. Any further discussion on 2026-06? All those in favor of adopting 2026-06 in its recommended form, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 2026-06 is adopted, and it will be released for public comment. And now we're at 2026-07, which gets us into the scoring criteria, the measures, weighting. And this is where we're going to start to get into the community considerations issue, and I'll turn now to the chair and Steve Peterson.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple intro slides we want to get through, and then we'll, we show it in a few different ways just so people aren't confused by it. So I'd say whatever choice you make today, we're releasing it for public comment, so we'll get comments on it and it'll come back to you. We also do commit that in 2027, we'll do a full evaluation of what worked and what didn't work, including community consideration. So you can think of all the new measures as a pilot of sorts that we will reevaluate and make tweaks to for the next cycle. So we've received quite a bit of feedback on community considerations, which used to be called the equity criteria and measures. And this gives a little bit of the history. Originally, the 20% of the total points were, that was the recommendation that came out of the special issue working group of technical staff that were working on this back in the spring and summer. Then over the course of the fall, we had lots of discussions about it and really have ramped up here in the last month in December. We did bring this to our Met Council Transportation Committee. They were very supportive of keeping it at 20% across the board. The policy work group had a long discussion on this back in December and tweaked it slightly to lower it for just the safety. The 2 safety applications down to 15%. Because that's where a lot of the feedback from the technical staff came from. And then since then, at the TAC Funding and Programming Committee, they recommended a slight change to that, shown in the second to last bullet point, where they recommended lowering it to 15% in all categories, 10% in safety. And then lastly, at our TAC committee, we knew there was going to be a split vote there. And so TAC is recommending both options, that both are under consideration. So what the policy work group originally came up with in December, and then also what TAC Funding and Programming came up with a day later, essentially. And so both those, just to clarify what those options are, they're pretty close to one another, not too much difference. The first one came out of TAC Funding and Programming, 10% for safety, for community considerations, 15% for all other applications. The policy work group slightly different, only lowered it off of that 20% marker for the 2 safety categories. And you can see the sub measures are shown here. Lots of discussion. Maybe I'll turn to Chair McPherson, see if he wants to add his 2 cents on why we forwarded both options and some of the rationale there.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Mr. Chair, member, so we talked about this in the policymaker work group just before this meeting, and I know they've talked about this a number of times over the last several months. So for them, this is a recap. But for the TAB members here, just a little bit more background on how we got here and the perspective that's before you. So as Steve mentioned, the as we went through the course of this, the Special Interest Working Group had the 20% for all categories. It's gone through review, and so over the course of the last couple of months, there's been comments from various agencies and technical experts along the way. I know that the counties have made a proposal just for consideration. It wasn't a formal proposal of 10 and 15 back in late November, early December. And then we talked about that at the policymaker work group. We also talked about that at the technical steering committee group as well that was set up with this. And so from there, went to the policymaker work group. The very next day, so after the policymaker work group came up with the 15 and 20 soft agreement or proposed compromise, the very next day, funding and programming came in and provided their technical perspective on it. And again, they're tasked with giving as unbiased of a technical perspective as they can. And some of the rationale for proposing something different than the 20% was in the safety category, which we've talked about a number of times. That category was specifically set up and called out to make sure that we're addressing the safety needs in our region. And so to prevent any watering down of that category, that was the intent of reducing the 20% down to something else. Ultimately, the proposal from funding and programming was 10% in the safety categories. So it was really to focus in on the safety aspects. On the other categories, when you measure the 20% against some of the other key measures that are in the different, I can't really call them modes anymore, but you call them the categories. So like in roadways, for instance, freight is a major part of our roadway system that we have to accommodate when designing roadways. Right now that's shown as 5%. So when you compare that to the 20%, there's a number of members that felt that that was a little lopsided. So they'd like to see more emphasis put on that freight, such as your prime delivery, UPS delivery, all of that. And then additionally, when you look at the bike ped categories, connections to key destinations, that was a lower percentage than this. And many people felt that that was an area that also needed to be upgraded. So with all of that, funding and programming came up with a 10 and 15% proposal. When it came to TAC, as Steve suggested, we could tell after the discussion, there's people on both sides of the fence. And at the end of the day, we proposed, let's bring both forward for TAB to decide and discuss and have that robust discussion, because we knew that if we went to vote, it was likely going to be a split vote as well. So that's a little bit of the background. Definitely can answer any questions if you guys have any.
Yeah, I could say the same thing happened in our policy working group. Split thoughts, and I'm going to first turn to Member Barber, because I think we want to have the Met Council perspective on this as well, and a little bit of the history on where you were and where you agreed to go. And
Sure.
that's a factor for us to consider as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I very much appreciate that. I think the first thing we want to talk about is just a reminder of what community considerations is. Community considerations is being able to talk about your community, being able to describe what the benefit of the project is to your community, and what kind of outreach you're going to do in the future. Project manager in my other side, if you can't define your project and have those sorts of things up front, it's not probably the right project. So you should know your community and understand the benefit to your community and be able to articulate that. Also, we have a regional goal, and that regional goal is our region is equitable and inclusive. All of you have heard this. Many of you have been around and agreed throughout the discussions of Imagine 2050 and the Transportation Policy Plan. When we embarked on coming up with the framework of regional solicitation under that context, we decided it was so important to this region that, yeah, we could have a separate category, but it should go across everything. One of the discussions that I've been hearing, like even today, was that the conversation was that there wasn't a desire to devalue equity and inclusion. And I can understand that sentiment, but if you look at the numbers, what is being recommended is to devalue equity and inclusion. And what I heard when I was listening to the TAC funding and program is more of a, it feels too high. We're going to decide that because it feels too high, not on good rationale basis of what we're doing. And so devaluing our commitment to equity inclusivity, when I look at, if you look where we're at in the region right now, this moment, this day, what's happening around our communities, is this really what we as a policymaking body want to do? I really think that is, it's a very sad approach, actually, in my opinion. I can talk a lot about how I feel my fellow council members. We did feel we were doing compromises going from with the policy work group recommendation of having the reduce the weighting in the safety category while keeping the others the same. We felt comfortable with that. This is something that this council is very, very passionate about. I heard about it all at Transportation Committee. They were very, very much 20% across the board. And understanding when we're talking with them, that understanding we wanted to shift that in the safety category based off of last discussions, everyone was comfortable with that. I do worry how the discussions may roll out at council. We've talked a bit with the chair here about that because, we all agreed that one of our big regional goals was our region is equitable and inclusive. And I think that is a principle that we should be living by, especially right now.
Thank you for that. In the sequence of meetings, then some of the county boards have had a chance to talk about this issue, some haven't. They've assigned particular commissioners to deal with this issue and report back to the board in some circumstances. But I'm going to turn now to Commissioner Holberg, whose board did have a chance to talk about this and give her some direction. I think she wanted to comment on that.
Yep, thank you. And first, I think I need to clarify. I heard you say that the county in early December put together a proposal that was 10 and 15. I believe the county's proposal had 10% across the board in every category.
Mr. Chair, I think it was 10 and 15, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
Okay, so
it's been a while since I looked at it, but I think it was 10 and 15 at that time.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit over. I think that second bullet point we have on there, county technical staff, 10% for all categories. I know it shifted a little bit here too, Joe. Yeah.
So I just want to make it clear kind of where we started. I did ask for a full board discussion on this. I represent the board, and generally I just, kind of do what I think's best, but given the importance of this, the 10-year life cycle of the updating the criteria, et cetera, and keeping them informed over last year, everything. We brought everything in front of the board last Tuesday, which was prior to the release of the packet. So the two options that we discussed were the original county one where it would be 10% across the board, and then the one that had the 15 on safety and the 20. And they very strongly and unanimously rejected the policy working group, 15 on safety and 20 on everything else, and requested that I bring forward the 10 across the board. I have the copies. We discussed this in the policy working group. I believe that no matter what happens today, this is going to be a split vote somewhere in the 50-50, 40-60 kind of range, and so kind of struggling with, what. I don't think this one we're going to get to consensus on, quite frankly. And so I'm not going to bring forward the 10% across the board as an option to be considered, given seeing what the TAC funding and programming, the two options that they brought forward. I'm pretty sure that Dakota County Board could see the value in making the compromises to the TAC and funding programming recommendation. And I know that Member Barber feels that it is a devaluation, and certainly I'm not quibbling with that impression or thought, but I might put another way of looking at it in the relativity, in how many points Community Connections gets relative to safety, or relative to freight, or relative to the other things. And in a purely, like I said, I'm not going to argue with your devaluation comment at all, but the way I'm looking at it is when you look across all the different criteria within a particular funding category, the weighting of the different elements to be scored, I'm gonna, say that the TAC and funding and programming, and again, I don't think we're gonna come to consensus. I don't know if the answers to forward both into community, into public comment and fight this out at a later date. But I do think that if we do choose to take a vote and forward just one option, that we should take a roll call vote and the members' votes be part of the public comment as well, so the public can understand just how divided and how we're divided on this issue as well, because I think we're all struggling with this, the desire to have consensus, and maybe this is one time where we're just not gonna get there.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Goodell.
Yeah, so I'm one of those counties, I don't take this up to the board. I'm actually appointed to do this as a representative, but I have robust discussions with our county staff who attend all the meetings or listen into all the meetings. So we have we try to have a lot of perspective too. I just want to state, and try not to overstate some of the things, restate some of the things that are being said, is that this is a many, many months process. And this is probably very aggressive as we are looking at it even for us now. So we're trying something pretty new and pretty different. And when we look at it in the scope of things, I'm trying to look at consistency and forward thinking and moving with all of this. And I'm definitely with the 10% for safety and 15% category, but I think it also matches some of the other categories. And I think that it still does emphasize the equity issue. I believe that it does, but maybe in a better perspective with environment, within freight, within all the other categories that we need to do. And it should be a part of it, and it's a part of our everyday business when we look at it in that perspective. Many things are gonna be competing for points and everything like this. This is also the first time we have done this particular piece. And I just believe that this is probably, and this may not be the right size, but I believe for right now, for trying it out, it's the right size. Now, in the past, we have changed from solicitation to solicitation, and there is opportunities to do that. But right now, I believe this is the best starting point.
I'm going to go to Commissioner Karwoski. I think I'm going to try to get county perspectives on this from their boards, or the reps to the boards that are county commissioners. So Commissioner Karwoski, then I'm going to go to Commissioner Jepson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did sit in on the policy work group prior to this meeting. That was very helpful to hear that conversation. Personally, as one county commissioner serving on a county board of 5, I would personally support as a 10% across the board on all categories for this community considerations. But I think in the spirit of what the Met Council will agree to maybe compromise on this, I would support 15% max in the spirit of compromise or getting along. The reason my points is that to make too much of the community engagement part of the application, there's a lot of that goes on for years informally about an anticipated project. And really, you want to save a lot of the community engagement that once it gets approved, that it's closer and time better with the project. You know, because the project often is 2 and 3, 4 years from the financing. We take a lot of pride in DEI. We're not gonna, that's not gonna lessen that, it's just gonna put it more in a better timed situation. So diversity, equity, inclusion, we're always reaching out. We're reaching out on safety, but we're talking about our projects well in advance, so I think informally, we're above 20%. But I really think for the application, I would, we're making good stride at 15% of the community engagement and or community considerations. I'd rather have it a lesser number that we can hit that number closer to the project delivery, closer when it counts in the normal community engagement. We do a ton of that formally, but it's after the approval of money, so.
Just so it's clear, just so we're clear, you're thinking 15% in all categories except safety and 10% in safety?
I'd be open to that. That would be consistent, but if it's easier just to have 15% across the board, I'm fine with that.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure I understood it.
Mr. Chair, It might help if people either refer to the TAC recommendation or the policy working group.
Yep,
So
I
we're
think so.
kind of all in the same.
Yep.
Because I think that's all that's before us at this point,
Good
is
thought.
those two options.
Commissioner Jepson, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Zhang a question too.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Anoka County would support the TAC recommendation. There's a lot of passionate voices, there's a lot of passionate opinions and thoughts behind this and reasons why. And I don't want to argue that any of our feelings or opinions are wrong or incorrect. They just differ. And I understand Member Barber's comments. I understand Member Carter's comments during the working group. And I understand where they're coming from. But when we use the word devalue, I think of that in the opposite sense. I absolutely respect and value and want incorporated into this solicitation diversity, equity, and inclusivity. I think all the transportation projects that we do have to have that front and center. So a number of comments that I have made is not have it a scoring criteria at all, just make it a requirement as a completed application. If it's truly that important, and we all should be doing that anyway, make it part of the criteria of a complete application. But since it's not, the 10 and 15, but going back to the devalue, I feel, especially in the safety category, to me, safety is saving lives. I mean, Sheila, you just talked about 104 people this year came home to their families that didn't the year prior. To me, that's devaluing human safety. That and that I can't compromise with, so that there's already community data and context and needs and future engagement and benefits that are already existing, that are already being done, but then we put that, we value that more than we do potential life. And that's an extreme example, and I get that, but that's the way I view this conversation, this decision. So again, respect everybody's opinion, not saying you're wrong, it's just something we don't see eye to eye on.
Commissioner Zhang, we didn't have the benefit of having your voice at the policymaker work group, but I hate to put you on the spot, but I wondered,
Yes, I would like to know when the policymaker work group meetings are, so that I could be a part of the conversation. But I did talk with our staff who have been a part of the TAC, and the concern is just, has just been more about like, from the technical side of like demonstrating that, they've done all this. However, I am, and also talking some more, I'm confident that we have been doing this in a lot of our planning documents, especially in our all abilities plan. So for Ramsey County at least, right, where we have identified our roads where we are using the social vulnerability index. We are looking at access to cars or like households that have cars or density and also proximity to locations. So I'm confident that, these are values that we have as Ramsey County. And I really support what Member Barber is saying, that, this is the direction that the Met Council is also going to as well. So I leave it up to you all. And, I agree, Commissioner Holberg, that this might be just something we're divided on. But I would really encourage that, us here as TAB, putting our other hats aside, right, as TAB members, that if this is a direction that we all support and this is something that the Met Council has had, that, that recommendation of going up higher there would be best. Thank you.
So as to the recommendation by TAC or the recommendation by the policy group, which recommendation are you comfortable with?
If I'm following the correction, it's, was it the policy work group? Yeah.
The policy recommendation, policy work group recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Fahey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As the alternate for Commissioner Workman, who had a conflict today, we did sit in a meeting last week with our staff. And our recommendation is to go with the TAC funding and programming group at the 10 and 15.
All right, thank you for that. Commissioner Ulrich.
Yeah, that would be the same position for Scott County, the TAC recommendation. I would like a call out in the comment on what can be considered in community considerations, specifically can pass through ridership or be considered in community considerations. I want to call out on that specific line. If you can call out others, I want to call out that.
Yes, you're requesting as part of the public comment
There's a-
process that
There's a note there to be looking.
look at that
comment
specific language.
All right. Member Martinson.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering, since we've heard from all the counties, I was wondering if the community members were going to get to have a voice or not. So thank you for,
I saved the
thank you
best
for
for
that. So I want to bring, I'm not going to make all the comments as I usually do, but I want to bring up a point that was mentioned in the policymaker work group, that how these things go, and we know this is how things go, is if we set this criteria lower now, we won't raise it later. We won't. We absolutely won't. And whereas if we set it at the recommended where it was, and we did have a discussion and a debate, and we came to agreement at the last policymaker working group on a compromise, which was a compromise of having 20% for the community considerations for all categories aside from safety. And then for that one, we were going to move down to 15% for community considerations and have 5% of those points go to for the people outside of vehicles safety criterion score. And I think that speaks to the issue of the concern that people have had about safety not being adequately emphasized. I share the concern about safety, obviously. So, and that's why I supported it, because it's specifically about people outside of vehicles. So my argument is we set it now and we can change it. We change things. But we tend to change things by reducing them. So I think we can set it at the 20% with 15% for that safety category, as was recommended by the policymaker work group. And then we revisit it in 2 years at the next regional solicitation, and we see what happened with that. Because I think right now this is new. We don't have any experience with it. We don't have any data to go on. So what we've got is vibes. We've got a lot of vibes in the room being talked about, but we don't have a lot of data. And so I like data. I'd like to have data, but I'd like to start at a more reasonable place. And so I think the 20% consideration, given that this is equity and inclusion, it is one of the 5 areas that were vetted extensively in the 2050 plan, that took extensive public input, that took extensive staff time in how they got put together. These are the goals. These are the 5 goals. This is the only goal that doesn't have its own application category. And so I think it's completely reasonable that we set this at 20%. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks for that. Member Lindeke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to share a few quick thoughts. I'm thinking about this since it was first brought up back in November, December, before the last meeting. The first time I ever heard of TAB was, I think, 10, 11, 12 years ago as an advocate for bike, pedestrian, and transit. And I was talking to Russ Stark, who was a former member here, and he was really excited because equity had just become a scoring value for TAB. And he tried to explain it to me, and it was so over my head just that it was a body that even existed, let alone all the details. But anyway, I'm here now, many years later, knowing a lot more about this subject. One thing that struck me was what Member Barber was saying. The thing that I was thinking about a month ago is that this specific moment in time politically is not just a regular TAB meeting. The federal government has been systematically defunding, destroying, eviscerating the safety net for vulnerable people, people of color, communities that have been disinvested in already for decades. And so this isn't just like a technical vote. Right now, what we should be doing at the local government level, at the regional government level, is making up for that evacuation from the federal government, right? What we should be doing is raising the equity and inclusion scores to make up for the fact that all these funds are going away in other places, so that we would think about reducing it, literally devaluing that number. I just think that's the wrong thing to do right now, because this is an emergency moment. So I'll be voting for the policy work group.
Thank you, Member Lindeke. Member Bradley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As we're going through this conversation, it just reminds me of a couple of things that I have, it brings up a couple of questions that I have, kind of like surrounding the opinions around this. So like in going through the regional solicitation process, there is a category talking about, it's not community connections or anything, but it's talking about like the diversity of the area and things like that. And it's used in the scoring. And I know that the community part is not just about diversity. It's talking about everyone in the community and any person that has contact with that particular transportation project that's going to be occurring. And so I'm wondering is there trepidation around, is it the cost of reaching out to the community before the project starts? Like I know that we can do that virtually on the websites. You have a city website, a county website where you can let people know that there's an upcoming project, or you can put a sign out, like we have one on Penn Avenue for the upcoming project in 2028. So I'm wondering if that's one of the reasons why some people are hesitant on moving forward with having it be like the 15%, or even there's been conversation to lower it, past the 10%. And then also I was wondering if that region is afraid that the project would not score high enough if they are including that category, because they're not reaching out in the same manner that, let's say, some of the, I think it's so like Minneapolis or St. Paul or Hennepin County, Ramsey County are doing. But that information has already been included in the projects that we've scored in the past. So I don't know why people would be kind of like hesitant are they afraid that that's going to happen? During the last, 5-6 years, there's been projects that has come before us where the project leads are looking to reconfigure the projects based on community input that occurred after the project had started. And some of the community conversations can be had early on that would prevent that from happening, whether it's a project going through a community down a particular street, and the community can give input to let them know that it should be moved to another street, or just different considerations. We had one considering trees and things like that. And so having community conversations should not be like an impediment to a project, but it seems like it's kind of being taken that way. And so I would like, I guess, for people to think and consider kind of like, how are you thinking about like the community conversations and with the scoring in place that we're trying to put in place?
Thank you. Now I'm going to go back to Chair Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the good discussion and the comments. I think this is an important conversation to have. One thing to sort of the conversations about the counties, you're talking about community considerations in your response to community considerations. You're talking about benefits, saving lives. You're talking about the, where people go to destinations, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about community considerations in the argument to reduce the weighting of community considerations. A couple of things also, I would definitely commit to reevaluating in 2 years. I agree with Member Martinson, working in science, you'd never, raise your limit up your, like if it's not working, then we look at it and we can bring it down. But if we set the bar too low out of the gates, we're never gonna know if we're making a difference on this. Also will offer for people who may be wary of some of these things, to Member Bradley's comments of being able to get the tools or the information. We have a whole different platform of information that's coming available as part of Imagine 2050 for your comprehensive planning. So as you guys, as the cities and the counties are out, we have a ton of online tools where a lot of the small cities will be able to actually go on and almost like download all of their community profiles and show how they're going to meet all the things that are required for comp planning. There are so many of those tools that will apply directly to what goes into these applications under that community considerations piece. Leaving it to describe the benefits and to describe how you're going to talk to your people about the project. So I think, you know, one of the things we should probably do over the next few months is maybe have some of our community development people come in and show some of those online tools to see how they can help not only with transportation planning, but what you'll be able to see as you're going through the comp planning process.
Thank you for that. Member Copey, little MnDOT perspective.
Thank you, Chair. I am the alternate for MnDOT for Connie, who is not able to be here today.
Pull your microphone a little bit closer too, if
by
that
all
might be helpful
means,
for people.
sure. Is that better?
Thank you.
We did have a conversation prior to today's meeting, and both definitely, it's not an easy answer to vote one way or the other. We did align in the respect of saying the 10 to 15%. We did have the policy working group meeting, which I was at the previous one, where we had some information and we were at the 20 and 15. I think knowing what we know now and what information was provided at the TAC, it does make us align to say that that approach is more consistent. Knowing that we were at 10% initially, the other is much higher, it is more of a compromise in the middle of 10 and 15. So.
All right. Thanks for that. Member Schember.
It's been a great discussion, and my mind has been going back and forth because there's so many good arguments on both sides. I would just add that I'm sensitive, or feel sensitive, to what appears to be somewhat of a bitter pill for the counties that's being possibly handed down from TAB and the Met Council. The counties are giving us feedback to the contrary of the policy working group proposal. The second thing I would like to see us not do that. And the second thing I would say is I have a hard time, I've been sitting here thinking, what type of freight, we talk about devaluing freight, and I'm the freight modal rep, we rarely talk about it, but I'm trying to come up with a freight project that would actually be devalued because we're putting a safety category at a high weighting. I don't think that occurs. I don't think it would occur. I think if a freight project truly comes to the board and is being scored, it should be scored on safety at a very high level and community considerations at a very high level. Our history has been the opposite of that, and I'm representing freight, you know, so I'm kind of putting it on ourselves. It's like, if we've got a freight project, it's got to work for the community. Otherwise, it's not a good freight project. And I know that's contrary to what you might think I would say, but it's got to work for the community. We've too often had the opposite of that in the past. So I would favor the higher scoring. I do believe we could walk it down if we find a problem. I don't believe it's set in stone forever, and I do believe that in 2 years we should look at it, and it could go both ways. It might even go higher. So those would be my comments.
Thank you,
Chair, if I
Member Schember.
can I comment
Yeah,
on that?
Commissioner Ulrich.
Imagine a freight project, Ports of Savage, and you cannot accept the feedback of the drivers delivering grain to the ports. That's what communicated consideration rules out. It's only, it would not allow feedback from those drivers.
I'm there with you. I think we have to consider that. That has to be part of it. I'm old enough to remember when the trucks would park along that highway there, all the way out to 35, to try and get into those port facilities. They would be along the road on both sides. That wasn't safe. Things get fixed. That's safety. It's a freight project. It's also a safety project. I think we got to weigh them. And a freight project should be safe. And I don't think so put that in the other categories as well. Whether it's the other modes, I don't think following the policy working group metrics would put those at risk.
Thanks for that. Member Marino, it looked like you had your hand up, or at least partway.
Thank you. Quick comment about just another part of the scoring and the transit in general. In the past, we've had a lot of routes that will like half duplicate another route and then have like a small little tail that like is a new service, and those have been scoring really highly. And I have a concern of that as far as how that feeds into our overall network. We see this often in like the orange line that has a lot of different duplicate routes that MVTA runs, and instead of just feeding into the larger coverage that is needed for the people in those areas, as we've heard a lot of times with suburban representatives saying there's not enough local transit service in those areas. But to kind of bring it back to this conversation, I think that, like Commissioner Zhang had mentioned, like there is a responsibility of the counties and the cities and the agencies in the parts of doing these comprehensive plans to do this outreach, to do this work, to get a real comprehensive level of what their community wants and to be listening to their constituents and doing that outreach. I mean, you can look around this room and it's pretty much very easily see this is not a representative room of our community as a whole. And because of that, we have to go above and beyond and to have those conversations and to reach these people that are harder to reach sometimes. And even speak to Bill's point about, you know, the public's awareness of what we are doing here and the ability for us, me as a transit representative to speak to this. We are underrepresented as transit representatives right now because we have not had a second transit representative appointed, because we've had to extend that time frame because there was not enough outreach, we've not had enough applicants. And so as somebody who is speaking for a mode of transportation that has a very significantly higher proportion of lower income riders, the other transportation methods, it's hard to see a lot of the conversation being, you know, filling up with things that are not speaking to the community, and in that same breath, being short a representative because there was not enough outreach done months prior, and the application and interview period was not done early enough in order to make sure that people could be here to add their voice to this discussion. Equity is never easy. Giving up control is never easy. But if we are really serious about making sure that it is one of our important values that has been approved in the TPP, then we need to make sure that we're doing those hard steps to make it happen.
Yeah, thanks, Member Marino. As this discussion has gone on, I was thinking, I think I've been here since the beginning, before equity was even a factor. And then we had the conversation about, yeah, well, shouldn't equity be a factor in the work that we're doing here at the TAB with respect to the regional solicitation? Yeah, we thought it should be. And I think, I was thinking about Commissioner Jepson's predecessor, Matt Look. I think when he first got on, it was, maybe we were in the 5% range for waiting. And then Elaine was doing some side work here. This may be helpful to the conversation. In equity, taking equity into consideration in the 2024 regional solicitation, in the roadway category, it accounted for about 8% of the scoring. In transit, well, first I'll say bike ped was about 10% of the scoring. And then for transit, it was 13 to 18%, depending upon the, I'll call it the subcategory. Transit expansion was 18%. Transit modernization was 16%, and then TDM was at 13%. So it's been building as a factor in importance over time. And now we're at this point in this juncture. And I can tell you in the prior meeting, we ended up with a split situation too. And Commissioner Holberg alluded to a few years ago, we had a split situation with a one vote margin on, but kind of built around two models, one that was more climate oriented, one that was less climate oriented. And it wasn't a good feeling, but nonetheless, it reflected people's views of the world. So here we are again, and trying to figure out whether we should be heading the policy work group direction or the TAC funding and programming direction. And it seems to me like it might be time for a motion relative to one of those two categories and see where we go. Because we've had a good, robust discussion. So, remember, we had a couple of people who hadn't had a chance to opine yet on their thoughts, and Member Coleman.
Thank you. I will keep my opining short because I think others have covered much of this. And I guess I will start by saying I really appreciate the conversation and know that everybody approaches this with a lot of intentionality. I would like to be on the record as fully supporting Member Lindecke's comments. In the less than 2 hours that we've been sitting here, I found out that ICE is currently on my street. We have also found out that the 8th Circuit has overturned the temporary restraining order that stopped ICE from attacking peaceful protesters in our community. I say those two things not because I think that they bear directly on this conversation, although I think that they do say something important about the context in which we take this vote. But I share it more because I think it is important to be mindful of how quickly norms can change and how we can sit here in this room and say that we all care about equity, we all care about community considerations, but the only way we can show that is in what we make our policies, and norms can change, values can change. They're coming under attack very, very quickly in our community right now, literally as we sit here. And so I think it is important to not just walk the walk, not just talk the talk, but actually walk the walk. And I will be supporting the policy work group considerations or recommendations.
Thank you. Member Johnson.
We'll see if I have the last word. We'll find out. I know we have the next item that is about active transportation, similar topic. And so I just want to bring that in a little bit. Our group for the active transportation work group didn't even talk about this. I mean, we had 20% come from the special interest working group, and we never talked about it any further. It just seemed like it was baked in, and that was fine. And it didn't come up as any controversial moment at all at the time. And we mostly wrapped up our work in October. So since October, this has now become the flashpoint issue, and I still struggle to figure out why. 20% felt very reasonable for months on end, and then suddenly, right at the home stretch, it became, let's drop it to 10%, let's try to compromise, let's figure out where we're going, and I'm just bewildered. I don't understand why we're trying to drop it. I understand this is, again, to echo, I think, everyone's sentiments. We're all coming from a good place. We're all trying to, express our thoughts on this. But I did want to just say, being sort of in this room for 2 years now, it seemed very baked in that we were going to have a very robust level of either its own category for the equity goal of the TPP, or it was going to be a significant portion of the scoring for all the other categories. And we even said, we're not prepared to have a second or fifth category for this. We have to bake it in. And I think at that point, it just, again, seemed like very logical it would be 20% because it's 1/5 of the goals. So it's, again, I think bewildered is the word I'd use. I don't understand why we're moving away from it. And I think I'll end on, we are in a particular time. I'm not going to, I'm the white guy here. I'm not going to talk about the impact on me. I think we need to think about others and think about what transportation decisions do to our neighborhoods and what happens to them and how much we want to have people involved in that conversation. And to say that this is new and scary for us as TAB, sure, I get it that it's going to be difficult to score and we might have things that go wrong even. I just think we're sort of catastrophizing what could happen to 20%. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Johnson. Yes, Commissioner.
So I'd just like to clarify a couple things. The TAC funding and programming is not the county's plan, and in fact, that committee has city folks and way beyond, it's populated. I mean, the counties are kind of getting the spotlight on it, but cities weighed in under TAC. There's city reps. We had our city reps at policy committee, Victor, weigh in on supporting the TAC funding proposal. I mean, we have a number of motions, but I guess maybe as a suggestion, maybe we do a tally, a roll call of sorts to get at least where we are on the numbers. I mean, if this is a 60-40 or 50-50 issue, then make the decision, do we put both options out for public or comment or not? But not really knowing how strong or not one position or the other is, I don't think we know what makes sense to put out for public.
If I understand what you're saying correctly, is just do kind of a straw poll.
Right, so take a recorded vote now where we put our cards on the table or whatever and make that part of the public record. And then following that, decide if it makes sense to put both weighted things into public comment or only one.
So a couple different ways. I'm still a little bit confused, but I thought we could do just an informal polling, or we could do a formal motion on one suggestion or the other and see where it goes.
Well, Mr. Chair, I really strongly want a formal record of who representing what areas and groups voted which way on this.
Well,
I mean, there's a belief by some that the Met Council's plan and what they do is representing the whole region.
Okay.
There's another view that Met Council is heavily populated by governor's appointments on one side of the aisle and is not reflective of the whole region. And so I just think for
Then we need
a clear record, I would like that to be on the public record of who is supporting which funding proposal.
Then we need to do it, I think, in the form of a motion, one category or the other. Either the TAC funding and programming gets advanced first, or the policy working group gets advanced. Do you want to make a motion? You want to make a motion to adopt the TAC funding and programming recommendation?
Yeah, and do you want to do it for both? So combine the active transportation and these dollars. I mean, it's basically the same vote.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm not
No?
sure about that.
Okay. All right. So I will move the TAC funding and programming recommendation into whatever agenda item number we are and ask for a roll call vote.
I'll second.
07.
I don't know if further discussion would be required, but let's see if there is any further discussion before we do a roll call. Okay. Member Lindy.
Can I just point out that it's vague, this recommendation, because there are missing points that just don't go anywhere, that anyone can imagine where they go, right? Am I making that up? It's this italicized part here?
Yep, Mr. Chair? Yeah, that's part of the report, and so the working groups will not bring back a recommendation for the missing 5 points.
It's half-baked to me, just in general.
All right. Let's call somebody else. Oh, Member Smith.
I don't know that I want the, Mr. Chair, I don't know that I want the last word on this, but I did just want to say that, I think my agency would certainly support the policy work group approach here. I spend a lot of time in community, talking to community members about their environmental concerns, about their concerns in their communities, and every time I talk to community members about anything that my agency is working on, transportation concerns come up. They talk about health impacts from the pollution in their communities from transportation. They talk about the safety concerns that they have in their community that they know the best because they experience it on a day-to-day basis. And so I just feel very strongly that we need to listen to those voices as much as we can in our policymaking when it comes to transportation. We set a bold vision as a region, and it takes bold action to achieve a bold vision, and centering equity at a higher percentage is just really important. And I think if we don't try it, we never know what it might, what we might achieve. And I think it's really important for us to think about the historical harms that the transportation system continues to drive on our communities and drive. That was an unintentional pun, I guess, but I think that if we are here to do anything, it's to listen to community and their concerns about their transportation system. And so I wanted to make that comment before we moved on. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Member Smith. All right, we're ready to do a roll call on this particular motion, which would adopt the TAC funding and programming recommendation at 10% community consideration for safety categories and 15% for all other application categories.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Anderson?
Nay.
Bailey?
Nay.
Barber?
Nay.
Bradley?
Nay.
Coleman?
Nay.
Chinitz?
Nay.
Doe?
Nay.
Fahey?
Aye.
Gattell?
Aye.
Gustafson? Hanson? Hubbard?
Aye.
Holberg?
Aye.
Jarrett Smith?
Nay.
Jepson?
Aye.
Johnson?
No.
Karwoski?
Aye.
Cowpy?
Aye.
Lake?
Aye.
Lindicky?
Nay.
Marino?
Nay.
Martinson?
No.
Morast? Petrick? Robertson?
Aye.
Nay.
Stephenson? Ulrich?
Aye.
Weisensell? Zhang?
No.
10 ayes.
Mostly.
10 ayes, 14 nays.
10 ayes, 14 nays. Motion fails. We could move to the recommended policy working group motion and handle it that way, or we could, I think Commissioner Holberg also,
You need another motion.
yeah, let me finish my thought here. Another way to handle this would be to advance both of them, just like the TAC did for public comment. But I'm not sure that we're going to get the depth of response that we need from a public comment standpoint. So Commissioner Jepson.
Never mind.
Never mind, okay. Somebody care to make a motion on, let's do it this way, in deference to people that are here making decisions. Is there a motion to adopt the recommendation of the policy working group relative to the weighting operations for community considerations at 15% in the safety category and 20% in all other application categories?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Member Barber.
Mr. Chair, roll call vote, please.
Yep. We'll do the roll call again.
Anderson.
Aye.
Bailey.
Aye.
Barber.
Aye.
Bradley.
Aye.
Coleman.
Aye.
Chinitz.
Aye.
Doe.
Aye.
Fahey.
Nay.
Gattell.
No.
Gustafson. Hanson. Hubbard.
Nay.
Holberg.
No.
Jarrett Smith.
Aye.
Jepson.
No.
Johnson.
Aye.
Karwoski.
No.
Kelby.
No.
Lake.
No.
Lindeke.
Yes.
Marino.
Aye.
Martinson.
Yes.
Morass. Petrick. Robertson.
No.
Schember.
Aye.
Stephenson. Ulrich.
No.
Weisensell. Zhang.
Aye.
Fourteen nine.
14-9.
Passed.
The motion passes. The weighting option by the policy working group is adopted. All right, thanks for that. I guess that's reflective of everything that preceded it at every different committee level. It's interesting. Okay, let's go to active transportation on 2026-07 is adopted in the scoring measure criteria and waiting to be released to the public for comment will be the recommendation of the policy working group. And then let's go to 2026-08, which is the active transportation solicitation scoring criteria and measure weighting.
Okay,
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So a similar sentiment here. We've got the policy work group recommendation at 20%, which shown in attachment 8, and then the funding and programming recommendation, which dropped the 3 categories in active transportation from 20 to 15%. This was the one that Chair Johnson had commented on that maybe it is a little different. I don't know if you want to illuminate on that, but so again, 2 options similar to before. Either, again, the first one is the funding and programming, drop it community considerations from 20 to 15%. Second option, keep it at 20, keep the 3 categories at 20%.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, nothing else to add. I will make a point, though, that, as we were going through the technical aspects of this with the special interest working groups and that type of thing, when you look through a lot of the measures, I will applaud the group and our technical groups and all of them, because there is equity and community considerations baked into a lot of the different measures there. So it's not just the one measure that's got community considerations. Just want to call attention to that, that it's baked into a lot of things already. So for what it's worth.
Yeah, okay. Folks, Chair Johnson, would you state again what your position would be relative to this and what and just kind of restate the determination of the policy working group that's been involved in the active transportation policy working group that you've been leading?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This was not a discussion point that we had. 20% was what we were presented with up through the October meeting, and we have not met since then, so we have never considered 15% as a group.
Mr. Vice Chair, any add-on?
Nothing to add. I mean, and that came early on, so.
All right. Thoughts on attachment 7, the Funding and Programming Committee recommendation? Anything further to add, Chair, there?
No, nothing more to add at this time.
Thank you. Chair Johnson, or Member Johnson.
Yes, and now, not speaking as the chair of the work group. One thing I did want to point out, though, is that for the active transportation sales tax dollars, there are legislative requirements, and those are tied into many of these categories, including the community consideration. So there are potential impacts there if we reduce this. Again, I'm not saying there's any major issue potentially, but it's something that would need to be examined in more detail if we decide to reduce it.
Good.
Just on that point, if I may just expand briefly, I don't want to give the legislators any reason to take this money away from us, and that they will if we don't follow the legislative requirements. They've already taken some.
Oh, all right. Anyone care to speak to the, I'll call it attachment number 7, the Funding and Programming Committee recommendation?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think this one's already baked. I think the cake's already baked, so we might as well just
All right.
make the motion.
Who cares to
and I would
move?
request a roll call.
Member Johnson, do you care to move the matter?
Yes, I'll move it.
Second, Jean.
All right. We got a motion and a second to adopt with respect to action transmittal 2026-08, the adoption of the policy working group recommendation to release for public comment. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Anderson.
Aye.
Bailey.
Aye.
Barber.
Aye.
Bradley.
Aye.
Coleman.
Aye.
Chinitz.
Aye.
Doe. Fahey.
Nay.
Gattell.
Nay.
Gustafson. Hanson. Hubbard.
Nay.
Holberg.
No.
Jared Smith.
Aye.
Jepson.
No.
Johnson.
Aye.
Karwoski.
No.
Kaupy.
No.
Blake. Lindeke.
He had to leave.
Marino.
Aye.
Aye.
Martinson.
Yes.
Morast. Petrick. Robertson.
No.
Schember.
Aye.
Stephenson. Ulrich.
No.
Weisensell. Zhang.
Aye.
Ayes. 9 nays.
Yep. The ayes have it, 13-9. Recommendation is approved. The policy committee or the working committee recommendation will be released to the public for public comment. It completes our work on that particular matter, 2026-08. 2026-09, please.
Yes, okay, thanks, Mr. Chair. The next three will be very quick, so I appreciate everyone sticking around. This is the regional solicitation release for public comment. So this includes all of the action you've taken previously, and it includes a few other items being forms, introduction, reference documents, but inclusive of everything you've approved, and it's to release for public comment. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any questions? Somebody care to move the matter?
I'll move it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second? Second, Anderson. Action transmittal 2026-09 is the one that we're on. The recommended motion is to recommend approval of the draft 2026 regional solicitation application for release for public comment, inclusive of all the changes that were recommended by the tab today. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the motion as stated, say aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. This will be released. All right. Thank you for that, everybody. And we have one more matter, I guess. Two more to go.
Yep.
2610. is next.
Okay, this is the same approval for the active transportation. And again, for both of these items, I do have a list of highlighted items that we'll send out with the public comment period about winter maintenance, radius on bike destinations, and a few others here, community considerations language. So we have noted that, and that we will call out a few things for the public to comment on.
Okay. Pretty straightforward situation. Is there someone that cares to make a motion with respect to action transmittal 2026-10, which would release the draft 2026 active transportation solicitation application package for public comment?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Martinson moves, Bradley seconds the adoption of the motion as stated for 2026-10. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of 2026-10 in its recommended form, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 2026-10 is adopted. 2026-11 is our last matter, our last active working matter here today. And that is the HSIP, the Highway Safety Improvement Solicitation Release for public comment as well. And Chair McPherson?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, nothing to add on this one, pretty straightforward. This has been a very successful program for many agencies, so this was unanimous support.
Okay. All right. Member Culpe moves. Is there a second?
Second,
To get you engaged here.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
And we got a second from Commissioner Gattel to approve the draft 2026 Highway Safety Improvement Program application for release for public comment. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of 2026-11 in its recommended form, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? That is adopted. No information items. And we are free to go unless anybody has any business for the tab that you want us to be aware of.
Move to adjourn.
Nothing for the good of the order. Thanks for some great work today. It was a fascinating discussion, interesting discussion, important discussion. And stay safe out there. We'll see you. We stand adjourned.
All done.